Thank you, John. It is great to be back in the Rio Grande Valley. It is terrific that John and I were able to bring 18 senators down to Texas, down to the valley, to see firsthand the crisis that is unfolding here. All of us today witnessed the Biden cages. What is occurring here on the border is heartbreaking, and it is a tragedy. You know, as we stand by the banks of the Rio Grande, we have an army of TV cameras here. It is striking that not a single one of these cameras is allowed in the Donna facility. We requested that media accompany us in the facility. The Biden administration said no. The Trump administration had allowed media inside facilities like that. The Obama administration had allowed media inside facilities like that. The George W. Bush administration had. The Bill Clinton administration had. But the Biden administration wants to hide what is going on here. Not only that, but a number of us took pictures and took videos because the American people have a right to know what is happening here. And the Biden administration sent down political handlers to try to keep silent, to try to keep the American people not knowing what's going on. The Donna facility is a giant tent city built with a capacity of 250. It has nearly 4,000 people in it. We saw cages after cages after cages of little girls, of little boys, lying side by side, touching each other, covered with reflective emergency blankets. There was no 6-foot space. There was no 3-foot space. There wasn't a 3-inch space between the children lined up one after the other after the other. And children as young as infants. We saw playpens with infants and toddlers playing. We also saw a group of children who just today tested positive for COVID-19. The Donna facility alone reports roughly 10% of the individuals being held there are testing positive for COVID-19. Rates dramatically higher than the U.S. population, and the Biden administration is taking people who are testing positive for COVID-19 and locking them in cages side by side. This is inhumane, it is wrong, and it is the direct consequence of policy decisions by the Biden administration to stop building the wall, to return to catch and release, and to end the stay in Mexico policy. A number of us are releasing those photographs and releasing those videos so the American people can see what's happening here. This needs to stop. It is a crisis, it is a tragedy, and it is a man-made crisis. This was avoidable, this was preventable. And regardless of your party, Republican or Democrat, you should look at what's going on here and say enough is enough, this must stop.
Thanks, Ted. Well, I want to thank Ted and John for making this trip available to the rest of us. It was incredibly informative, incredibly instructive, very sobering, and as Ted said, I think really preventable. This shouldn't have happened, and I think one of the lessons we learned is that if you don't build it, they will come. When you don't finish the job and secure the border, you are inviting people into this country. And many of the changes made by the current administration, they were forewarned that this would happen. They were told in advance, this was predictable, that you were going to have thousands of people flooding across the border. And the thing that's probably most concerning, and I say this with all due respect to our Border Patrol folks, is that they spend so much time just taking care of people who come here illegally. They can't stop the bad people, the smugglers, the drug smugglers, the human traffickers. And when you're devoting as much time as they are to taking care and supervising and trying to keep safe all those people who are sitting in these facilities down here, it really is a sad day. We need a change in our policy. I am grateful to the Border Patrol for just the tremendous job that they do. I'm sure it seems like a very thankless job even on a good day, and there aren't many good days when you have thousands of people coming across the border. But we appreciate their work. They're trying to keep our country safe and secure. We need to help them by putting good policies in place and getting away from these failed policies that have been implemented by the Biden administration and that are leading to this crisis on our border. Thanks.
We learned from the Border Patrol that they were asked a long time before the inauguration of the new president, their advice on how to handle situations at the borders. We're told that they were advised more than once not to change the Remain in Mexico policy. They didn't take that advice, so we have a crisis at the border because this administration wouldn't listen to the people that had tens and tens and tens of years of experience with the problems here at the border. So this crisis is because this administration would not listen to good advice. And it's become a national security problem, a law enforcement problem, a humanitarian problem, a lot of other things as well. And yet, they want an immigration bill passed. How can you pass an immigration bill when you have an open border? If they want to accomplish anything on immigration and I want to help them, it would be secure the border. You got to stop the bleeding before you can take care of the problem. Thank you.
I'm John Barrasso, Senator from the state of Wyoming. We came here for a number of reasons. Number one, we wanted to thank the Border Patrol for the job they do every day and every night. We met with them last night and went on midnight patrol with them. They told us their job got a lot harder on January 20th, the day that Joe Biden became president of the United States. As we were with them last night in the darkness across the river, we could see the traffickers and the coyotes and the smugglers on the other side of the river with their bright lights, almost as bright as that television light right there. And they were taunting our border agents, saying, "You cannot stop us now." That's what our agents are up against as a result of the policies of the Biden administration. Today we went to the Donna facility. And what we saw were young people crammed in like sardines, something none of us would want for any of our own children. And as we tried and did video what was happening there to share with the country and the world, the Biden administration censors tried to stop us. Yesterday, President Biden held a press conference, and he said that the great majority of families who come here illegally are being sent back. That's not true, and either he doesn't know it or won't admit it to the American people. The Border Patrol will tell you it's not true. The senators who are here today will tell you it's not true. The men and women in the field will tell you it's not true. It's time to let the press in to see what is happening and the tragedy that this administration has brought on to our nation.
Mike Braun from Indiana, hundreds of miles away. We see all this on our own TV sets back home, and there's no substitute for being here. This was an unforced error on the part of the Biden administration. And when you look at what underpins it, it's that caustic political environment we've got, that if one side is doing it, and it happens to be going well, the other side wants to undo it. In that moment I'll take back, that I'll never forget, is what Senator Barrasso just talked about. To think that you got the brazen statement when we're there, when the Border Patrol is there at midnight, that they're going to keep coming and they're going to get the best of us. That is a sad situation, and I'm hoping that there's enough political will on the other side of the aisle to do what they should have done in the first place, and that's not to try to fix something that wasn't broken and go back to what is working. You can tell just today in daylight, helicopters, state trooper boats, Border Patrol, and there was something that just happened between when we went upriver and back. That's how tough it is.
I'm Dan Sullivan from the great state of Alaska. I am literally thousands of miles from home. But this is important to my state for a whole host of reasons. The number one thing I've taken out of this trip, and I want to thank Ted Cruz and John Cornyn again, is the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States need to do what we just did. They need to come down here, they need to listen, and they need to learn. Here's what I've learned. We have an upside-down border policy in America. What do I mean? We have open borders on the southern border. There's no doubt. And by the way, the people coming in who are released immediately almost, they're not tested at all. Open borders, no testing for COVID. For the southern border. For the northern border, we have closed borders. My state is facing an economic catastrophe, the great state of Alaska. People want to come travel there even after being vaccinated, and we have that border closed. What we need is the opposite. A closed border here for the time being and an open border on the northern border. That's what the president and vice president will learn if they come down here like we did and learn from the people.
So one, Ted and John, this is the most informative trip I've ever taken, and that's saying a lot. Why are 18 senators here? Because it's the biggest issue facing the country in many ways right now. So what have I learned? They knew. If the Trump administration had been told something and they did the opposite and it blew up in their face, everybody would be asking the Trump administration, what did you know and when did you know it? So I'm going to help you here with your reporting. Mr. Hastings, who's a 2-star Border Patrol leader, told us that he briefed transition members of the Biden administration as to what would happen if you do away with the Remain in Mexico policy. He told us they briefed the Biden administration what would happen if you changed the Title 42 laws to allow unaccompanied children to come here and not be sent back home. Everything they said would happen happened. So if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to find out who he talked to and memorialize that conversation and hold them accountable, because they knew, and when they say this is Trump problem, they're lying. This is a problem of their own making. What else have I learned? That Joe Biden, the president, made the problem worse yesterday. This was a nightmare press conference. He told everybody, don't worry, we got crowded facilities. We're going to build 5,000 more beds in Texas at a military base. So how does that play in Central America? They're going to expand the number of people they can take. He said when a child has a phone number on their wrist, we're going to call the family member and unite that family. This is uniting illegal immigration. So the last thing I learned is that we're complicit as a nation in human trafficking. What did we learn last night? There's a trail on our side of the border with markers placed by the federal government to show illegal immigrants where to go. That we're transporting people who pay to get here the last mile with your taxpayer dollar. It's costing about $800 a day per child. If we don't change the pull factors, go back to the Remain in Mexico policy where they can't apply for asylum here, send the unaccompanied minor children back to their home country, there will be 250,000 people a month coming. The Border Patrol said there is no end to this. So Vice President Harris, this is your job to fix. I promise you I will work with you, but you cannot possibly understand your job unless you come here. The last thing we're going to do is introduce a resolution praising the men and women of the Border Patrol and the Customs Department. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan 56 times. Our soldiers serve in incredibly tough conditions. What we're asking the men and women of the Border Patrol to do is inhumane. They have to deal with things that I don't know how they make it through the day. I don't know how their families stay together. So we owe it to them. Finally, the president said, I'm not going to apologize to anybody about my policies. Mr. President, you need to apologize to those whose job it is to secure the country for making their job impossible, and most importantly, you need to change.